So thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to do a short presentation from Rob, who's from Workwhile, who the council are working in partnership with around supporting small businesses in accessing apprenticeship levy funding. And in Rob's presentation, he'll cover about how that works and how your business can access that. And also we've got Gemma as well. So Gemma is the manager for the council's job brokerage service called the Job Shop. And so after the presentation, she'll give you a bit of information about what the Job Shop does and the support that's available for your business as well around recruitment for staff and sourcing candidates, and also accessing training opportunities as well for your members of staff and also for yourselves as well. And I'm also Mohammed. I'm from the council's business support team, so I manage the business forum, and we have a number of different projects and programs that are taking place as well around general business support, sort of outside of training opportunities and stuff like that, which we'll talk about later on in the at the end of the session. So I'm going to hand over to Rob in a moment, and what he's going to do is just run through the presentation around how the apprenticeship levy funding scheme works, and then also if you do have any questions or queries, please feel free to use the Q&A function or pop a question in the chat, and then sort of at the end of the presentations we'll hopefully be able to answer them for you. So I'll hand over to Rob now. So yeah.
Great, thanks. I'm just going to share my screen. I've got a short presentation I'll take everybody through. Hopefully that's displaying on everybody's laptops, and it can sometimes take a moment or so to come up. So I'm Rob Singh. I'm from a project called Workwhile. We're a project that was set up back in 2019 by the think tank IPPR with the goal of helping to get London moving with apprenticeships. As a think tank, we were asked to do a bit of research as to why the apprenticeship system has slowed down, why fewer small businesses were engaging, why lots of apprenticeship levy was accruing. And I guess to summarise that, quite a lengthy report into one sentence, or one idea, is that the system had just become a lot more complicated. Businesses had far less capacity than they used to sort of try and get their head around it. And what was needed to get things moving was quite a sort of hands-on approach. Now, as a think tank, we would normally take those ideas, give them to the political parties to create policy. But this time around, what we decided to do was actually do the work ourselves. So we approached a few funders. We had some funding from the Mayor and JP Morgan to do a pilot called the London Progression Collaboration, where we basically created tons of apprenticeship opportunities through giving small businesses lots of advice and guidance, and also connecting small businesses with large organisations like Berkeley and Dagenham Council to share some of their apprenticeship levy. And as an organisation, post the pilot stage, we're now called Workwhile. Apprenticeships are still really at the heart of what we do, but we also have a focus on trying to ensure those apprenticeships are really good quality to be the maximum benefit for the small businesses and for the apprentices themselves. So as part of that, we developed a bit of line manager training, and we also do some bigger projects around London for organisations who want to support small businesses. And this slide's just kind of showing off a little bit and kind of showing you that I hope you're in safe hands if you get a bit of help from us, which is that we've helped to create 1,750 apprentices across small businesses in London. We've shared £15 million worth of apprenticeship levy to pay for the apprenticeship training for those apprentices. And actually, our work has been really recognised, been cited as best practice by the OECD, and that's comparing different sort of apprenticeship interventions across the world. We've been mentioned in Parliament, and yeah, we've been going for a little while now, and we've built up a great knowledge, and we've got a real sort of really practical way of supporting small businesses. So the first thing I thought it'd be useful to do in this webinar is just establish exactly what an apprenticeship is. The word apprenticeship conjures up different things in different people's minds, and I guess in the 4 years that we've been working, in this space, we still, we still meet with small businesses, and even actually large businesses as well, where there's sometimes a bit of a misunderstanding as to what an apprenticeship actually is. So the first thing is that an apprenticeship is a job, and it's a job which has some structured formal training as part of it. So they're often full-time jobs, which in the apprenticeship world is classed as being at least 30 hours or more a week. These people are paid, as in the same way as you would do for any other employee in your organisation. They'll get those same benefits, sick pay, holiday pay. And in terms of the pay, we'd recommend, where you can, looking at paying under living wage. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. It's not a requirement necessarily, but it is really, best practice, and we've seen some fantastic results from that. So, as I said, it is a job with structured formal training, and they'll be working and being productive in your organisations, as any other employee would be, but they'll have 6 hours of that paid time where they'll spend that learning off the job. So that could be a day a week at college. It could be some training delivered remotely through the training provider. There's lots of different ways that happens, but the crucial thing is that essentially, on average, across the duration of their apprenticeship, they'll need to have spent 6 hours a week learning. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's structured formal training. So actually, the learning they get, there's some really clear syllabuses which have been created by industry. So the stuff that the apprentices are learning hasn't been sort of conjured up by the colleges or the education sector. For each apprenticeship standard, the relevant industry, so key players in those industries have come together, looked at what it means to be in that role, what skills, what knowledge, what sort of behaviours are needed, and have created that syllabus together. So each training provider will follow that roadmap of what the apprentices need to be able to display at the end of the apprenticeship, and will deliver it in ever so slightly different ways. The apprentices are also assessed at the end of the apprenticeship, so they'll be assessed by an independent endpoint assessment organisation, which I guess gives you that confidence of that 6 hours time which you've given them a week out to be learning is time well spent, is resource well spent, because they will have got a good quality education. They will have which should be proven, and they'll have that at the end of it. Now, something that we still find that people didn't know was that apprenticeships aren't just about getting new people into the organisation. They are a great tool for getting new talent into the organisation and putting quite diverse talent. But they can also be used to upskill existing staff. So you could have somebody working with you who you want to keep. They show real promise, but they're not quite ready for that next step. What you could do is use an apprenticeship to train them so that they'll stay with the organisation, they'll move into that next role that you want them to, and you can retain staff. And again, they're not just entry-level positions, the apprenticeship roles. They can be from the entry-level, sort of GCSE kind of level of education, level 2. They go right up to master's levels, level 7 apprenticeships. Apprenticeships, the minimum term for an apprenticeship is 12 months. And that tends to be some of those more entry-level, sort of level 2, level 3 apprenticeships, with higher level apprenticeships where there's a little bit more learning, perhaps taking 2-3 years. So I'm not going to go through all of these points on this slide, but there are tons of really great benefits to employing apprentices. I'm just going to talk about a few of these which I've seen some really great examples of over the past few years. So one that always sort of comes to mind for me when sort of speaking to those employers that we've supported is that improvement in productivity that they see. So an apprentice will, whether they're new into the organisation or an upskilling apprentice, they will they will be feeling a sense of value from you as an employer, that you're training them and that they do have a place in the organisation. So what we've seen is, even in roles where you perhaps wouldn't expect there to be necessarily the hugest amount of job satisfaction or inspiration, improved productivity. So an example that I always think about is when I met with an independent hotel in West London, who put a lot of their staff on the level 2 hospitality apprenticeship, including a lot of their housekeeping staff. And housekeeping isn't necessarily a role which you think about if you're thinking about an inspiring role, but actually these housekeeping apprentices were coming back all fired up and excited after their training sessions, full of ideas of how they can do their job better, how they can start to lay the foundations for progressing themselves, but more crucially, just doing a much better and much more efficient job in the hotel. And I think if people working in those sorts of roles can get really excited, I think anybody can for apprenticeships. The other really great tangible benefit that I've seen time after time actually is that reduction in staff turnover. And again, it's related to that feeling of being valued and invested in by an employer. And I guess one of the really sort of stark examples I've seen of that was, well, at the beginning of our project, we met with a lot of large organisations that were engaging in apprenticeships to try and get some understanding of what works and think about how we can share those sorts of learnings with small businesses. And we met with Starbucks. And again, so I guess another role which you perhaps don't necessarily associate with loyalty and job satisfaction, but they told us their barista, so they're ordinary baristas who weren't apprentices, they only retained about 30% of those. So a really high turnover role, and I guess most people would expect. But when they employed people as apprentice baristas, that turnover shrunk to only 30%. So they were retaining 70% of the apprentice baristas, which is completely flips that situation on its head. So they, as a company, they invest quite heavily in apprenticeships now, because what they see is staff who are motivated, who are staying within the organisation, so not incurring all those extra costs of having to constantly recruit. But also, these people are happier and actually serving the customers and the organisation in a much better way than those staff who perhaps didn't feel as invested in and didn't feel the role was as valuable as it was. I'll share these slides afterwards so you can have see these other benefits as well. So Workwhile, we're funded by philanthropic funds. So Youth Futures Foundation, Trust for London, and a capital fund called CVC are our main funders at the moment. But what that means is all the work and all the support that we're able to offer you has already been paid for. There's no cost to you to taking advantage of of all these things that we offer. We certainly encourage you to. So I guess the main things that we can do for small businesses, we can offer end-to-end apprenticeship support. We could help to broker some levy transfer from a large organisation like Borough and Dagenham Council. We also have a roster of about 100 large organisations we work with who want to share apprenticeship levy with small businesses. We also do a lot of knowledge sharing. So we've built up we're in quite a unique position, I guess, not being a training provider, not being a local council, having we're not commercial. So we've got a real different perspective and view on the apprenticeship system and what's been working, what's not. And lots of organisations are quite candid with us around what's working. So we're able to pull together lots of those businesses and share a lot of that information. So we have webinars which we run on a quarterly basis, which are free to join, and there's some fantastic information and tips that you can pick up. We also offer some line manager support as well for small businesses. We know that sometimes there aren't necessarily the same resources that there would be in a large organisation, so we can help to bridge that gap with some free line manager training. I'll talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. just so you can see what we've got on offer. So firstly, I think probably the biggest piece of work that we do is that sort of end-to-end apprenticeship support. So we can help you to get set up on the government system, so you can engage in the apprenticeship system. We've got some really great resources we've created for this, which take you through every step you need to take. And if they're not, if they still haven't done the job for you, we can quite happily jump on a call and take you through it. We can help you to think about which apprenticeship standards might be best for you, and how they might meet your objectives and what you want to achieve. We can also help you find a training provider. So what we won't do is we won't push you towards a group of different training providers that we like. We'll give you quite an impartial view of who has good Ofsted and good employee satisfaction rates, but then give you a little bit of coaching around what to ask a training provider and how to ensure that they're the right training provider for you, because there are some great training providers out there. Some might be right for you, but they might not be right for the business, another business that's operating in the same space, because all businesses have different ways of working. So different training providers can deliver the apprenticeships in ways that suit your organisation. And we can help you to think about that and give you some tips around how to talk to them and find that detail out. In fact, I mean, I guess that training provider relationship is one area that we've seen is actually quite crucial in the apprenticeship journey. We've seen quite large organisations kind of quickly, rushed into choosing a training provider, and actually, because they hadn't taken the time to talk to them, find out how they delivered the apprenticeship, they wasted pretty much a whole cohort of apprentices because the way the training was delivered just didn't match the way their business operated. And then the final bit of support that we give in terms of the apprenticeship is that help with matching you with a levy transfer donor like Borough and Dagenham Council, and then we will support you through the whole process, so letting you know when you need to approve things and do actions to receive that. So in terms of that levy transfer and that funding the apprenticeship, there are two options. Two main options available to small businesses. So the first one is where the government will pay 95% of the cost of up to 10 apprentices trainings because you are a small business. And for some standards, that can be quite cheap. So if it's, say for example, health and social care level 2 standard, that is around £4,000. So your 5% contribution toward the cost of that will be quite small. But then when you look at some more technical apprenticeships, like some of the digital standards, some of the higher level apprenticeships, or even some of the construction standards, the cost of those is about 20,000. So suddenly your 5% contribution can actually be a little bit of budget that you'll need to think about. So the other option, which eradicates that need for spending any of your budget on the training element of the apprenticeship, is levy transfer, and that's where a large organisation like Borough and Dagenham Council can share some of their apprenticeship levy to pay for 100% of the cost of the training part of the apprenticeship. And we work with, this is just a snapshot of some of the businesses that we work with who share apprenticeship levy, and basically, if you're not aware, the apprenticeship levy is a tax which businesses with a wage bill of over 3 million pay 0.5% of that into a pot, which they can only spend on apprenticeship training, and that money expires after 2 years. And lots of large organisations like the councils, they're just too big to be able to spend it all. So Borough and Dagenham have tons of apprenticeship opportunities within the council, but the size of the organisation means that no matter what a great job they're doing of that, they're always going to have a little bit more than they can spend. So that excess is available to pay for your apprenticeship training, and yeah, that's the same is true for many large organisations as well. So as I mentioned, we do run a lot of knowledge sharing sessions, so we call it our K2 network. We just had one which I think finished just before this session started as part of National Apprenticeship Week. The next one will probably be within 3 months. We cover lots of different topics which are important for small businesses to think about. So we had a panel around the importance of fair pay. We've had a session on how to recruit more diversely. And we've had sessions on the importance of finding a good training provider. So there's lots of key topics which are useful. It's free to take part in. So look out for those. We can share information about those in the future. So the other, as I mentioned right at the beginning of the session, so we now do a little bit more than just apprenticeship support. We want to try and improve the quality of apprenticeships. And having worked with a large number of small businesses, we've started to sort of understand where sometimes things don't go quite as well in the apprenticeships, so where there might be apprentices dropping out. And one of the key areas we saw was actually around line management. So perhaps where the line managers either weren't fully on board with the idea of taking on an apprentice, so they weren't properly informed. They were, we also found a lot of line managers in small businesses are what we call accidental line managers. So where they are really great at their job, they've been working in the organisation for years and doing a fantastic job. And the organisation decides to take on an apprentice, and they say, "Oh, you know what you're doing. Look after this new apprentice," without being able to give them any training to help them with that. So we've created a bit of training to alleviate that problem. It's some practical training which gives lots of tips and ways of working, ways of thinking, as well as some coaching to help line managers in small businesses to be able to be confident with their line management of apprentices and also the rest of their teams as well, the other direct reports, and also, I guess, something a way of managing which also can support apprentices, which also may be their first position for a while or at all. We deliver this through a couple of interactive sessions, which we could deliver in person or remotely, and it's free for small businesses with young apprentices aged 24 or under. And the feedback has been unanimously positive. We've helped line managers of all experience, some who've been managing for 10 years or so, and some who it's been their first line management position. And all of them, because we had a 12-month pilot where we spoke to them at the beginning, 3 months after the training, 6 months and 12 months after the training. And we've had some fantastic insights to what has worked well. And we've actually added a one-to-one check-in as well as part of that. And one of the examples of how that's worked really well was with a nursery we supported in West London. There was a new room leader who was in her early 20s. And as I said, she was an accidental line manager. She'd worked her way up from being a 17-year-old at the nursery, knew what she was doing. So when I spoke to her at the beginning of just before the course, she said, "I think I'm doing okay." I think she was doing a lot of the techniques that she'd remembered her line manager doing with her. But then she said her apprentice, she didn't think her apprentice was going to stay. She was managing an 18-year-old apprentice who had been coming across quite unmotivated and actually talking about maybe moving to Tesco just to get a bit more money and more flexible hours. We delivered the training. We had that 3-month catch up, and the change was amazing. So we caught up with the line manager and the apprentice separately. But the line manager said it's just been, she used a lot of those techniques that we delivered and was able to start really properly communicating with her apprentice. And as she thought she was doing a good job previously through managing like her manager managed her, she perhaps hadn't taken into consideration that lack of experience and perhaps not being able to be as self-sufficient right at the beginning of their career. And now the apprentice has stayed really motivated, working towards their apprenticeship in a really successful way. And it was just, having that different sort of way of thinking has really sort of helped that success. So talked about how we can help. I think it's just worth covering a few other things that we can support with. So I mentioned fair pay and how we believe it's important. So it's not, as I say, it's not a criteria for working with us. It's just something that we would encourage you to think about and would be able to support you to think about. I think the only thing, our only pay criteria is that we don't support the apprenticeship minimum wage, because we feel that's too low for London, really. But we recommend, where you can, look at paying London living wage. And what we found is it can be quite daunting, that idea of the wage bill increasing to be able to pay what's going to be in April 13-15. But the other side of things that has made it worthwhile and has been a success for small businesses, that they tend to attract better candidates. And again, quite crucially, that retention rate is much higher. If people are feeling valued and feeling they're being paid well, they're going to stay. And what that translates into is lower recruitment costs. And the recruitment cost side of things, and this disruption of having to recruit, it's something that doesn't really sit that easily on a spreadsheet. So when you're looking at the case for paying more, you might say, "Oh God, this is just going to drive us out of business because it's a massive increase of cost." But there are costs associated with that high turnover, which, like I said, don't sit so neatly on a spreadsheet. And I think it's been calculated that cost of losing someone in recruiting is about sort of £20,000 to £30,000 in lost time, in cost of recruitment, in lower productivity as someone's tapering off, and in terms of being short-staffed and having other members of the team having to sort of be less productive in their own roles to cover, and then that sort of turns into to increased sickness or absenteeism as well. So we'd be more than happy to speak about that sort of thing, but we always like to sort of have the opportunity to plant that seed and get people to think about that. The other value we want to talk about is how apprenticeships are really great for diversifying your workforce. We've seen some really great examples of people who have good A levels or GCSEs, who for them university or continuing their education in a formal way just isn't an option because of their home situation and financial situation. Whereas apprenticeships are a fantastic way of keeping those talented individuals on that pathway of progression. There's also great ways of getting perhaps more females into particular types of roles, or perhaps underrepresented ethnic minorities into roles where perhaps they might not have felt comfortable to commit to doing a degree in something because of how exclusive perhaps a subject seems. But actually working and doing the apprenticeship has been a really successful way of getting for example, more women into tech. We've also seen apprenticeships been a great way for businesses to employ SEND candidates, so those with special educational needs. They can be a really great untapped resource of people who are really capable, but again, the formal education perhaps doesn't bring the best out in them. So there are lots of specialist training providers that we can link you up with who can help you to find those sorts of candidates, or if you have people already who can support that. So in terms of next steps, these are, I guess, what is available for small businesses in Barking and Dagenham. So firstly, there's the levy transfer. So if you're employing a Barking and Dagenham resident, we can help broker a levy transfer from Barking and Dagenham Council, which pays for the cost of the apprenticeship training. So Yeah, the levy transfer just pays for that, the course fee, which can range from about 4,000 to 20,000 plus. You'll still have to pay, as they are an employee and they're going to be a productive member of your team, you'll still pay their wages and their holiday pay and sick pay as you would do any other team member. If you're taking on, if you're a Barking and Dagenham based business, and you're taking on sort of outside of the borough, and the council aren't, if the council aren't able to support that within the policy, we also have lots of other large businesses who we can still provide support with. We have our developmental line manager training, which I talked about, which you don't have to have engaged with us with the apprenticeship support to use that. It is free for small businesses who are taking on young apprentices, and it's generally delivered over 2 half-day sessions, and there's loads of practical support there. And we've got loads of free advice and support to get set up on the apprenticeship system, help to find a good provider, and so some good work tips. So we're more than happy to have conversations around that. And then other bits and pieces which I think Gemma's going to speak about in a minute is there's some fantastic support from the council around recruiting local residents. The council do a lot of pre-screening, ensuring that the candidates are right for you. So I'd certainly recommend engaging with them. So Gemma will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So that's my introduction, I guess, to apprenticeships and what's available. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now. And Gemma, I don't know if you want to talk about what's available in terms of recruitment before we take questions, or whether you want to do questions first.
I'm happy to do that. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. It was really helpful. So just to do quick introductions, my name's Gemma. I work in the job shop. We have the job shop which supports residents back into work, and then we also have a team specifically for called the employer engagement team that basically supports businesses with their recruitment. So it's a free service. And what we can do is advertise roles. That could be apprenticeship roles. Obviously, this is an apprenticeship session, but it does actually extend to other roles as well. And we can help you, as I say, to advertise positions. And then we look at the people that we've got on our caseloads, residents that are local, that are actively seeking work, and we can match them to your roles. So we do screening for you, take the time and money out of you having to go through different CVs that maybe aren't suitable. We can do all of that, ask the right questions and get the right candidates over. As I say, it's a totally free service. It's a council run service. And in addition to the recruitment support, we also do events as well. So just yesterday we hosted an apprenticeship event, a jobs fair. We had over 200 residents attend, come along, speak to employers in person about different vacancies that they had, different apprenticeship opportunities, and we do them regularly. We do sector specific events, we do general events. We did a really successful event last year in the market where employers were given their own what do you call it, like a gazebo, like a gazebo in the market, and we're able to engage with lots of different people that were invited to the event and also just coming through and using the borough. So there's lots of support on offer basically, and as I say, it is all free. I just see a message come up actually, I think in the Q&A. So we do it as well. Just to mention, everything is all tailored to your needs. So if you've got a number of apprenticeships that are available, or it might be other roles, we can actually do recruitment sessions specifically for you as well, as a business. So it doesn't have to be on a larger scale. We can host interviews, set up interview days for you on our site or on your site, and take the time again and sort of the effort out of confirming all the interviews, where you've got to go, what you've got to do, all that we can sort of take on for you. So it's definitely worth getting in contact if you have any kind of recruitment, whether that be one role, a large recruitment campaign. Definitely get in contact, and I will put my details in the chat just so you can see those as well. I've just seen Leah say Yes. Yeah, thank you for coming there at the event. Yeah, Barney Bears were at the event yesterday. So to say, there was a lot of people coming through and it was a really successful event. So yeah, do get in touch. I'll pop my details in the chat now.